and welcome to another episode of Conversations with me, Daron Jenkins. And I am joined on the show today by somebody. Actually, I'm very interested in having this conversation because you seem like you're on a bit of a hot streak. Gigi Burgdorf, actress, who is currently celebrating the release of the new Paramount film Preschool.
That's right.
Welcome to the show, Gigi. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Daron. How are you?
I'm okay.
Can't complain.
Well, I could complain. There's always don't challenge me. I can complain. The weather here in New York. So where are you right now?
So I'm filming in London at the moment.
You know what? So I'm glad you said that because as I was reading your bio, and are you originally from New York City? Oh no, you're from Baltimore.
Yeah, originally from Baltimore.
Okay, yeah. So how are you in UK?
So I grew up in Baltimore, and I lived kind of on the outskirts of the city, or basically just the north end of the city. And I always wanted to escape Baltimore to go to the big city of New York, which I did for college. And then I decided to spend a year in London and very much fell in love with it. And my husband's English, so we spend a lot of time here.
Okay.
But I feel like New York is still my spiritual home, I'd say. It's like the place that I feel is like in my blood. And so I love to be in New York as much as possible. And then also LA, I mean, I'm not big into driving or sunshine, but the industry's out there. Yeah, but the industry's out there. So yeah, I go wherever the work is, to be quite honest with you, Daron.
Yeah. That I can completely understand. And I actually I lived in Maryland for a little bit, like when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah, am I wrong? Do you have some connections to Silver Spring?
How the heck did you know that?
I did a deep dive on you, of course.
Holy smokes!
I think you've mentioned it on a previous episode. So.
Oh wow! Okay, so you listened to the podcast.
Of course.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in I think 8th grade. I was in Silver Spring, and I tell this kind of story because it tells me like how small the world is. So Dave Chappelle famously is from that area, and he went to the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, which is like a pretty popular school. A lot of people have come out of that school, and it was actually a school that when I was in 8th grade, when I was about to go into high school, my mom who lived in DC was working for a woman who owned her own preschool, but she also was connected to as a counselor, I believe, at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. And so my mom she knew I wanted to get into film. I wanted to be a special effects artist and the whole thing. So she's like, all right, we're going to get you into this school. And I messed it up. It was all me. I did it. It was my fault. I got in trouble for making long distance phone calls to my friends in Jersey.
Okay.
And my mom was like, all right, that's it. She's like, you're going back to Jersey. And I didn't go. And I was like, I was that close to going to school with Dave Chappelle. That close. So as you're in Baltimore, like, were you already in the acting arts? Were you, or was
Yes.
it something that you were aspiring to?
Yeah, I think I started young, I guess. And the Silver Spring link is just my dad and my sisters live in Silver Spring, so I think we have links in common. But when I was I think I was probably about 12 or so when I got really serious about acting. Before that, it was just, one of those things that I enjoyed. But it was when I was about 12, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And so then I was in every single school play that I could be in, and eventually doing community theater. And Baltimore has a pretty good theater scene, so there was a lot of stuff to go and see and to get involved in. So I was doing it, I would say, from pretty young.
Wow. So who were some of your early influences at the time?
I think I always thought that my career would follow the path of Judi Dench. I set my sights high, Daron.
Interesting. Okay.
I think because I loved theater, and particularly classical theater, and I thought that I would be, I would have this whole big stage career and then dabble in screen stuff later on. And I think also Judi Dench once described, so I don't know if it was a director described her or she described herself as something like pretty enough for all normal purposes. And I sort of thought, yeah, I kind of relate to that. Like, I'm not going to play the sort of screen goddesses, but I'm just sort of normal looking, and and that works. And especially in the theater, it doesn't matter quite as much. So I thought that was the route that I would go down, but it's not been the path that my career has taken.
It's funny because like this is way before you probably even thought of living in the UK. Your inspiration was an actress from the UK. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just so it's kind of like you were preordained to be there.
Yeah.
On
I
some
mean, I
level.
was heavy into classical theater. I just thought I always loved Shakespeare. And I guess that was partially my way into acting was, in school, everybody takes a turn reading a little bit of some bit of Shakespeare. And I just instantly thought, yeah, I get this. I love this. I want to be reading this and doing this. And so I thought, classical theater was really my path, which is what eventually led me to London to do a 1-year postgrad course. And then at that point met my first husband, who was English, and ended up staying for a while. And so then it's been kind of back and forth since then.
What is it about theater that kind of that like what's something about theater that really you feel like fulfills your soul?
I think it's probably language, like the importance of words. I think that's what really drew me to theater. And in theater, the playwright is king or queen, and that's sacrosanct. You go with the words. And I mean, that I always felt like we're here to serve the playwright. I think when you're doing something like Shakespeare that's been around for so many, there have been so many different productions and versions, and you think we need to stay true to this because there's something already here.
Right.
Whereas when you're doing new writing in the theater a little bit, but more screen stuff, TV, film, it's much, I had a hard transition because I was always like, we got to say what's on the page. We got to stick to this. And there's often a much looser feeling with screen stuff where people are, experimenting or trying to try a different version of that line, or I'm going to make it more like myself. But going back to your question, I think with theater, it's just that the text, and because I was a big reader as a kid, I thought, it was just so amazing to be able to create these worlds just through words.
How supportive? Because like there's always the famous story about like traditionally where parents don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's not a real career. You need to be a doctor or a lawyer. Were your parents? Which avenue did they follow? The supportive or the
I think honestly they were somewhere in the middle. I mean, they were supportive certainly when I was doing plays all the time in school. I remember my dad coming to every single play I was ever in and bringing flowers. And I think when I announced that that's what I wanted to do for my career, there was a bit of a bump. I think simply because I did quite well academically, and if my mother had had her way, I'm sure she wanted me to be the president or something quite grand. And I got into some good schools, and I just I knew, at that point, I didn't want to sit in a classroom. I wanted to be doing acting as part of. So anyway, the agreement we came to is if I got a degree, so that's how I ended up going to NYU, because it was, it's very conservatory based. You're doing lots of acting training, but also some liberal arts stuff on the side, so you get a degree. And I think had I insisted on auditioning for somewhere like Juilliard, I don't quite know what I think they just thought maybe, I think maybe they hoped I would grow out of it and decide, in fact, I wanted to be a lawyer like a lot of people in my family and then become the president.
God, that sounds so familiar. My
Yeah.
father did exactly the same. He was like, because I wanted, like, to be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something creative.
Yeah.
And at the time, my brother was an artist. He was like a comic book artist. And so I didn't really know, I didn't have a lot of influences to kind of draw from. Like, so I just said, all right, I'll just do what he's doing. My father was like, nah. He's like, I don't think, he's like, if I'm paying for it, you have to have some type of other thing. You can pursue all the classes you want, but your degree needs to be in something that is grounded in get a job kind of a thing. So I was like, okay, well, I kind of just cheated and took advertising design, and because I knew I could take the business side of the class thing and I could still do art and sculpture and all these other things. And of course, film and TV was a part of that puzzle. And, so I kind of snuck it in there underneath the underground.
Yeah.
Us artistic people,
Crafty.
we're crafty. Yeah.
I feel like actually maybe then that I got off a bit lightly because my degree was actually in acting. So I didn't have to put up a front of pretending to study something else. And I do feel like in retrospect that I'm glad that I got a degree, just to, I guess, have broader opportunities and to have met more people in different fields than just if you go to an acting conservatory and only meet actors. I think that can be limiting. But
that's true. That's true for sure. I mean, I've always kind of lived by the motto of, being able to be as diverse as possible. And I think that comes in handy when you're an actor, obviously.
Absolutely.
So you can do different roles and be different things. Goals early, like, so when you graduated from school, what were your goals like immediately out of school? Like,
I really thought I'd be, temping in an office for a very short time, and then I would get some big role and I would be, on Broadway, or my acting conservatory was right next to the Public Theater, and so I was like, oh yes, I want to be on stage in the Public Theater and be in Shakespeare in the Park. And I thought, I mean, you hear it's going to be tough, and so I thought, oh, a year or two. I'll be going to these open auditions, I'll be pounding the street. And it's been more like 20 years.
Well, yeah, some things take time to simmer,
Yeah.
As an actor, I had set this goal when I got out of college. I set this goal as an actor. I said, if I don't get a role of something, by the time I turn 25, then that's it. I'm just gonna,
wow.
And what was hilarious about it was, I remember I was 24. It was about a month before my birthday, and I'm just like, here we go.
Getting tense.
Getting tense. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try the hardest thing I can possibly find to do. So I decided I had never done this before. I decided I was going to do stand-up comedy on the stage, the hardest stage in America, the Apollo.
For your first?
That was my very first thing I've ever done. It was
That's brave.
it was stupid. No, it was stupid.
Stupid brave.
I got booed off stage. It was ugly.
Wow.
What I took from it, what I gained from it, I'll be able to kind of replace, which is I was like, if I could get up on that stage, I can do anything now. So it gave me a lot of confidence. Actually, like maybe a month after that, I got my first role.
Wow.
Because I was just like, screw it. I'm like, if I can get up there, I can audition for just about anything, whatever. So it was my first role was in a Spike Lee movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, we're like, we are a feisty bunch as actors.
Yeah. And I think, but that's fearless, I think, to say, I'll just try out a bit of stand-up comedy on the stage at the Apollo.
It was terrible. It was terrible. And it's funny. Until about 4 months ago, I had never seen the footage, ever.
And how was it?
Well, it was not good. It was ugly. It was ugly. But because the Apollo, they have a big archive online. If you really want to go, you can go and look at past performances. So I was like, okay, let me check and see. And it was there. And I was like, oh yeah, this was just as bad as it felt.
But that doesn't take away from the bravery to do something like that.
No, I will still to this day, I say that was one of the best decisions I've made. But because it really did teach me a lot about, just doing it. Like I feel like, especially in our profession, entertainment and media business, I work with a lot of filmmakers all the time, and a lot of them are always waiting to have the perfect opportunity for certain things to happen. And I was like, you can't wait. You have to just go for it. If you're an actor or director, or producer, whatever it is you want to do in that field, especially as an actor, you just have to kind of do it. You can't wait for the perfect role because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist until you create it. So,
and I think often what you get out of doing something like that, it obviously that didn't lead to immediately onto some amazing, stand-up comedy specials of your own or whatever. But what you take from that kind of fearlessness, I once did I sometimes do some, corporate role play?
Yeah.
Where when companies are training their staff, they get actors in to practice difficult conversations with them, or sometimes to sort of shake things up by getting the actors to come in and say negative things about the company, and then to see what people's reactions are. And anyway,
that I didn't know. That's interesting. Okay.
I had to do one thing once. I think it was for a bank, or I don't know. Anyway, it was a big company, and I had to basically walk in and say a pretty much a 10-minute monologue to their faces about how awful their company was. And
wow.
In the middle of it, I had to throw in some words of Chinese for some reason. Anyway, it was terrifying, partially because it was, just 10 minutes straight of me talking, but because it's actual people who didn't know I was an actor. They're obviously going to talk back and, have some, you just didn't know what to expect. And it was terrifying, but I literally felt fearless after that. I thought, any audition, anything you can throw at me, even on being on a big set with 200 crew members and 200 extras staring at you is nothing as compared to the pressure of, what might happen if you're coming in and saying things to their faces. So I always really enjoyed the moment afterwards where it was actually, I'm not awful. I don't think your company's awful. This is just a training exercise.
Yeah, it's all like if the other people don't know you're like this, if they're not in on the joke per se,
yeah,
that is a little scary.
Yeah, and I've only done 1 or 2 jobs like that ever. I never want to be the one who's tricking people. I always want to be the one where it's, they know I'm an actor. We can practice the conversation, and then it's That feels much better when you're on people's side.
Yeah, no, I absolutely I can understand that. What what do you find the most rewarding about being an actor, and what do you find the most difficult?
I think probably the most rewarding thing is when you're playing a character and you know those moments where you feel like it's almost like you're not doing it, you're just sort of channeling something just
Mm,
happens that you maybe haven't planned or you don't really know where it comes from. I love those moments, because it's feels I don't want to get too, esoteric, but it feels like it comes you're just the muse or you're just channel I don't know, something is happening that's
you're in the
outside of.
zone.
Yeah, exactly. You're not controlling it. So I love that. And I also really love the camaraderie on sets. I'm the kind of person who I like the, 3 a.m. chat in the holding room for the actors
Mm,
while they do another set. I love all that interaction. The hardest thing, I guess, is the obvious one of it's it's very hard to turn it into a career and to be
mm,
seen and to get parts or to even be considered. I mean, I think it was about 20 years of waiting to get good auditions and not waiting to book good jobs, but
right,
just waiting to be
right.
seen for things.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was going to be the case. In drama school they would say, oh, you're the kind of actor you probably won't work till you're older, but when you hear that at 20 you think, oh, you mean 25
Right.
or 30 or 40. Turns out they meant 45 or upwards.
Like, wait, what?
I think it's just the endurance of it. It's a 24/7 game to be chasing the work and to be always available. But I think if you're the kind of person where that, and certainly the case for me, is that it's the thing that I want most. I've always wanted it most. It's the thing that I care most about. And so I think those things don't feel like such a sacrifice as they would to somebody else who maybe their heart's not in it or they're half in, half out, or they have other, responsibilities or um, pulls on their heart and their time.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely you you have to really like I always say comedians, actors, and music artists. You have to be 100% in it or not, or 100% out. Because when you're in the middle, is it can be very stressful and very disappointing because it's not the kind of job where you get a resume and you hand it over and two resumes, two more meetings and then you got a job and you're just doing it now. It's it's competitive, it's frustrating, but when you do get it, it's such a like high.
Yeah.
It's the high is very high. The lows are very low, but the highs are very high.
Yeah. Yeah. I do sometimes wonder if there's some way to do it kind of in the middle, in between.
Mm,
To not I think if I had to do it over again, I wish that I hadn't committed so young, that I hadn't
mm,
gone 110% for it, from the time I was it, it- from the time I graduated from high school. It was all about, how am I going to make this career? And it's been like that ever since. And I just wish I'd sort of had a looser looser approach or a looser attitude, or it meant less, or I decided to do something else first, or
mm.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about I think the industry right now. We're kind of at this interesting time. Like I remember hearing the story of Tom Selleck and how old he was when he started acting. I mean, and you've heard other stories like that. I mean, Samuel Jackson wasn't very young, and there's been a bunch of different other artists who started later in their careers. But it was I mean it's very like far and few between when that happens. But I feel like the way the industry is now, it there are more. older actors and actresses coming into the space now than they used to be. And I think mostly because that the filmmakers, the producers, directors they're different. They're just a different breed of creators now, and there's a lot more indie projects that are a little bit more open to using older actors than they used to be. So I don't know if you could have. I think you did it the right way. I think based on when you got into the industry, it's just the industry's just changed so much, over the time that maybe a lot of the actors didn't have to do some of the things that we had to do.
Yeah. And I guess I think also I don't feel like I did it wrong because I did the information I had at the at that point. So I thought that, all I cared about was theater. Starting out, I didn't really know much about film and TV and the process of it because I was so into classical writing and it was only after many years of chasing that I discovered almost by accident TV and film. And then once I started doing it, I realized I'm better cut out for TV and film than theater, simply because unlike a lot of actors, I don't love the rehearsal room. I don't love spending, 3 weeks, 6 weeks poring over things and trying things out and failing. I want to work. I love that, with screen stuff, a lot of the time you figure it out on your own in private. Then you come to set and you see what other people are bringing and it shakes it up and it's really fun. And I think always on a film set, I think this is just going to be so amazing. This is the best thing I've ever done. And sometimes you watch it, a year or two later and it isn't, but it doesn't matter because you had that experience at the time. Whereas theater, I think, is like weeks of trying things out and being confronted with your shortcomings and what isn't working. And you eventually figure it out. And by the time you get in front of the audience, you're flying, but you have to live through the doubt and uncertainties first. Whereas I think with film and TV, you get to skip straight to the bit of this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of characters do you find yourself most being drawn to?
I tend to play a lot of what, I don't know if they're still called this, but what used to be called character roles. And I think it falls into two camps. It's either the quirky, funny comedy lady or the woman who eats her own children.
Which one's funnier? No. Okay. Interesting dynamic there.
Yeah. Two very different. I don't know. I don't know why that is. Maybe when I was young and I was really into theater, I thought I was going to be this really dramatic actress. I thought I almost discounted comedy. I don't know why. I think because it always seemed easier to me in some way, and so I was like, well, that's not hard. You're not raking up your soul for that.
Right.
And so drama was really attractive and still is. But I think over time I developed I guess a sense of that, like, oh, actually comedy isn't that easy. You don't always get it right. And so it is also something to strive towards getting better at. And, but also at the same time, if you are funny, then you can kind of lean into that. And but it's always, I feel like it's very often joyous to film a comedy. And certainly Preschool, which is the film that's just come out, was such a joy to work on. Probably one of the most fun sets I've been on. And I think because what we were doing was silly and ridiculous, it was hard to take ourselves too seriously doing it.
So, was there a ton of improvisation? Because I feel like on a good comedy set, there is a good amount of improv and just off the cuff and kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and there were takes where things were looser, but there also was, sometimes it was after the scripted dialogue, it would carry on, and lots of, I think, Michael Socha, who it was, so the leads were Josh Duhamel and Michael Socha, and then Antonia Thomas and Charity Wakefield. And I think Michael is just a natural gifted improviser. So I think that is probably, he kept us all in stitches, but then everybody else was leaning into that. And I think so Josh was directing as well as starring in it. And so there was this sense of a bit more freedom than, it was almost like there were no grownups in the room.
I love
in a
that.
way that, you normally would have the director sort of reeling you in, but because Josh is in the scene and he wants to have fun just like the rest of us, it took on a life of its own. It was a little challenging for me because I was doing an accent that's not my own, and I didn't want to really go too broad with it. I didn't want to improvise too much because I didn't want to mess things up. But I think at least a moment or two where I just, added something after the lines, or that they made it into the final cut. So I was pleased with that.
Look, I mean, having studied sketch and improv, it's fun when you're in the room like that, but it could be a little challenging, like, because depending on who, like I would never, ever, okay, maybe this is wrong. I would love to be in a scene with Jim Carrey, but I would also not want to be in that scene because, I mean, it would be like me on the court with Michael Jordan and just, he's dunking and stuff. And I'm like, well, I can't dunk, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So you're trying to play catch up a little bit, but it's also, I mean, when you're in it, when you're part of that scene, it's such a beautiful thing to kind of witness happen.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because for me, because I love improvisation. I could improvise till the cows come home, but I also have always a respect for the writer. And so there's a part of me that almost is, unless somebody says, feel free, go wild with this, then I tend to hold back. And then also, I think in a situation like this, where in a lot of the scene wasn't really about my character, I felt like, in a way, you have to take a step, if you're in the scene with Jim Carrey, the scene's about Jim Carrey.
You're right.
You don't need to be, I think there can be something competitive sometimes about comedy improv that I don't.
Absolutely.
And I do feel like, particularly on a film set, you kind of have to know your place in terms of the hierarchy and in terms of not slowing things down, because every extra improvised take you do is literally costing everybody money. So you have to be pretty sure that it's going to be good material or useful in the end.
You have to be respectful of this. You have to trust the script to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, like if it's you and Jim Carrey, that's one thing. But if it's Jim Carrey and, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds, then you just stand back and because the slugfest is about to take place.
Yeah.
And you let them, and one of the things I noticed, I also kind of realized, is that by you sticking to what the script is giving you could accidentally become the funniest thing about the scene, because the audience watches this and they know there's a slugfest going on, but they see you staying within the script, and for them that's the funniest thing right there, because they know what's going on.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the reactions, or I think that's what's so great about a set where there's improvisation going on, because even when if the script is really strong, still the improvisation adds this layer of looseness and chaos, and you don't know what's going to happen. And so instantly, I think your reactions are a bit more unplanned because you don't know what's coming, so you can't really plan them. And I think that is often where some of it's that energy that comes through that brings a lot of the comedy.
True. Yeah. Yeah. So as you're progressing through your career here, what's something surprising that you've learned about yourself?
I think I think I've been surprised by what I'm able to, I guess, how I'm able to feel comfortable in situations that, you dream about things and you think, oh, it's going to be like this. And you don't really know what it's going to be like till you get into those rooms, till you're on those sets. And I think I've been surprised by how comfortable I feel on the set. And even, starting in very small roles where you're a co-star and you have one or two lines. And it it is an interesting dynamic because often you feel like an outsider, but
Mm.
actually there's something that I just feel like, oh yeah, this is where I've always been meant to be. So it's fine. And I really have been, I guess, surprised by the fact that I love it's 3 a.m, it's freezing cold, and you have to look like it's summer and you're having a great time. And
Oh
I
yeah.
love that. And I didn't realize how much I would love that till it happened. And I think a lot of it's because I'm naturally a perfectionist. And that kind of, it's 3 a.m, you're carrying a tray of drinks and you need to not be shivering because it's supposed to be summer. And so that kind of cuts out the perfectionist because you're not thinking, I got to do this as well as I can. You're just thinking, I just have to look like it's not 3 a.m and I'm not freezing. And so I think those moments, it feels like you've done something heroic.
Yeah. No, you have. I think so.
And that to me, I mean, I think I guess that's really my answer is what surprised me is how much I love that, how much I love
Mm.
getting to feel like a hero just because you've done these tiny, small things.
Huge. Like, so at our studio a couple months ago, we shot a music video for Neo. And at the end of the video, they wanted to do like a rooftop shot. At the time, it was, I want to say, 8 degrees outside. And they had a bunch of dancers that were basically dressed in like short skirts. And I'm like, wait, they're going outside to shoot what? And they're like, yeah, they're going up to the roof and they're going to do a whole dance scene. I'm like, okay. And what was funny about it is because the what was it was supposed to be matched with an artist from the Middle East that was doing kind of their version of the video in this warm climate in the desert. So the dancers couldn't be cold; they had to be acting like it. I'm like, when they came down from the roof, I was like, that was the most impressive dancing I've ever seen without you guys looking like that you were cold. I'm like, so yes, you should be very like you should if you can pull that off, you are like a wonderful, wonderful person to cast.
I think also if you can pull that off and be at least outwardly still in a good mood, because I
Yes.
think it's so important on sets to keep your cool and try to be an easy person to be around and to not be complaining. And sometimes you have to, I guess, on a really big set when they have people, I like a really high budget set where although you have to do the freezing thing, they also are giving you, shoe warmers and little hot
Right.
packs. And I love all of that too, because you're thinking, well, somebody sat down and thought about my, you know, what
Yeah.
what I was going through, and they gave me these things. So then we're all heroes together.
Right.
So but to keep your cool in those moments, I think is one of the biggest challenges, I think, of the job.
Because, and I tell people this all the time, I'm like, the industry is not very, I mean, you think it's a big industry, it's not. You're going to run into the same people up the ladder as you see going down the ladder and the whole bit. And you just never know where the next gig is going to come from, where the next job, when the next acting role is going to come from. It could end up being one of the PAs that was on that music video ends up being the director on your next film, and they think about, oh, that this person was so cool to work with under these conditions. I want her on our set for sure. I don't know how, but she's going to be in this movie. And that's to me, I tell people that's a very important piece of being an actor, which is kind of maintaining these relationships across your experiences.
Absolutely. And being a person that is, nice to have around and doesn't cause problems for other people. And I think actually I do feel lucky actually for all the years of, just crickets and tumbleweed, because when I'm on a set, I'm so happy to be there. Like I know, I know that I was chasing it and fighting for it for 20 years. And so even if it's a really small day player type role and you're not there for long, or if it's a challenging middle of the night scene, I always am able to remind myself, like, this is what I have been clawing my way towards for so many years. So I'm just overjoyed. I always say my happy place is in the trailer on the set, because it's, well, first of all, because you're probably comfortable because you're in your trailer, so you're not out in the 3 a.m. freezing cold.
Yeah.
But you're part of this bigger thing, and it's a place that I just for years have tried to get to. So I think that the struggle has helped, Daron.
The struggle definitely helps. I mean, I've seen like interviews on like Jimmy Kimmel or Fallon, whatever, actresses and actors tell like these miraculous stories on how they got their first role, and I tell people, I'm like, that's a great story, but that ain't you. I mean, that is like 1% of the industry. It's mostly a very tedious process, and a lot of auditions and a lot of self-taping and going, a lot of rejection. But I feel like you have to go through that sometimes in order to get where you need to go. It is, I mean, it's it's the life you chose, and you're almost like an athlete, like a professional athlete who has to go through all the ups and downs before you make it to the league, so what are there any specific roles or types of characters? Because you said that you had either the person who eats their children or the comic relief. Are there any roles or types of characters that you haven't had a chance to portray but would like to explore in the future?
I think, well, this is probably more about the genre than the actual role itself per se, but I would love to do some period drama. I feel like I was born to be riding in a carriage in my gown or inviting ladies to tea in my drawing room. So I would, there's so many shows over the years that I've been thought I would love to be in, but right now with Bridgerton and Gilded Age, because it's that world, but it's also Americans. So it feels like there's more of a window for Americans on that show. And then also Buccaneers, which again is oldie timey, but with Americans. So and it's nice to feel like there are periods or stories in history that haven't yet been fully explored, because I mean, maybe I guess there's endless things to explore in history, but I feel like that sort of the nouveau riche Americans versus the classy old money English folks is also, I think, a really interesting take. But I think in that world, it's definitely the kind of the meddling mother who is trying to marry off her girls to the right people, or so something like that would definitely be an ideal.
I can see that. I can see you doing that for sure.
Maybe it's the hair. I feel I have this like, oldie timey curl hair.
Yeah, well, you've got the theater background, so they know you can carry the dialogue, and you've got the hair, the flowy hair. So I mean, I I will tell you that my podcast is good luck charm for a lot of people.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, 2 years ago, I had a friend of mine who's a producer. He produced this film called Silent River. So he asked me if I wanted to interview the cast. I said, yeah, of course. So I interviewed like 5 of the cast members, and one of them was this actress, and she's the lead actress in the film. And we were talking on our podcast, and I asked her like, what roles would she like to play? And she's like, I would love to be in something either Marvel or Star Wars related. And I told her exactly the same thing I'm telling you. My my podcast has been very good luck for people.
Okay.
6 months later, she ended up on Andor. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, in a major role. I was like, so there you go, girl. Good luck. Congratulations.
You made it
Just
happen, Daron.
I made it happen. I'm a kingmaker.
You are.
Yeah.
I'm glad to meet you then.
She's like, and do you work on the lottery too? What advice would you have for any kind of young actors who are to help them kind of navigate things? Because I know you've been on, you've done, like, you've had the hard time. You understand what it takes. Like, what would be some, if someone came to you and said, hey, I want to be an actor, like, what would you recommend for them?
That is a really good question. I think a big one is, or certainly in my case has been true, but the be patient. And I think that's both about you have to play the long game. So you have to think about how are you going to make a life? How are you going to support yourself if it does take some time to get to where you want to go? So I think it's be patient in that sense. If it's something you really want, keep chasing it, but also be patient in the situation when you're actually working. So I mean, being on a set and even being in a rehearsal room, particularly, during tech time, you just have to be patient. You have to learn to be good at waiting. And I think that is probably the key to succeeding as an actor, is if you can be good, waiting in those times when you don't have a job, or when you do have a job and they haven't got to your bit yet, then I think you'll last much longer than somebody who wants something immediate.
Yeah, I have this quote that I say is, hurry up and wait.
Mm,
That's essentially what you're doing. Hurry up and wait.
yeah.
And if you're a patient, like, I mean, it's like, you know, there's a lot, I feel like as an actor, you're tested not just from talent, but by personality.
Yeah.
It really is a personality barometer of sorts. Because if you're patient and you work hard, like, patient and work hard, you should be okay. You might not be, landing the lead role in the next Dune, but you should be able to pick up, some commercial work and some smaller roles and some television, because there's, I think I've met a fair amount of directors, and they all kind of tell me the same thing, which is, if you work hard while you're on the set, and you maintain like a good relationship with the people who are on the set with you, and you just work, you do steady stuff, you should be fine. You should be able to find some work. Um, Again, it may not be Oscar winning work, but you can't go from doing nothing to be an Oscar winner. It takes some time. It takes a lot of years, unfortunately. I'm in it.
Yeah.
I ain't won no Oscar yet, but that's okay.
It's coming.
It's
If we
yes,
if we
exactly.
speak it on this podcast, it will be coming.
I have a gigantic bottle of champagne sitting on my windowsill right here, just waiting for that
Ready.
moment. Yeah, it's like 3 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
So, what was the most valuable piece of advice that you've ever received and from whom?
I think probably some advice that I got fairly recently from the absolutely beautiful and legendary Mary McDonnell. She, she's been nominated for multiple Oscars and Emmys, and a lot of people know her from Battlestar Galactica. She's done everything, and she's a lovely human being. And we worked together on a film called 1 Second After, which we filmed last year. And I think just one night after we finished filming, we were talking about, I was asking her about how do you build such a career? How do you have that kind of longevity and also stay such a nice person in the midst of it? And she gave some advice that was essentially you do have to look after yourself. You have to advocate for yourself and for your character. So if there's something on set that you need to be able to do the job, or that you think, that from your character's perspective, something that would make the scene more effective, then you have every right as an artist to ask for those things. But it's very much about asking for them in a nice way, and not, we've seen that you can be a diva and still be successful, because some people are, but what I loved about her and about that advice was it was very much about, you could use your charm to ask what you want, ask for what you want, instead of just demanding. And I think there can be a lot of entitlement, I think, amongst actors, and or behavior that kind of comes across that way. And I think, but to understand that you're allowed to advocate for what you need or how you should be treated if you're not being treated properly, or advocate for your character. And you really have the right to do all that, as long as you do it in a way that's, collaborative with the rest of the crew.
Yeah, that is, yeah. I mean, I feel like when you get to a certain level of your career, there are things you can do on the set that most people can't do.
Yeah.
But and I think it's like, everybody's got their process. I think that's one thing that you have to come up with a process that works for you within the scope of what's happening around you, I guess, if that makes any sense. So,
yeah. I think it got me thinking, simply because I think being on the outside for so many years, and now finding myself in these worlds that I feel like I've been knocking on the door trying to get in, and suddenly here I am. And so there's a part of me that just, is like, oh, let me keep my head down so I don't get thrown out of this private club sort of feeling. And so to look at it in terms of, yes, you can be that way and it's fine, but actually, if you're then not serving you're not helping people make as good of a film as possible, because you're not saying, actually, I need to have a quick bathroom break, or whatever it is. I'm just talking about small things, not demanding anything that you're not entitled to. But I think there is something about going back to playing the long game, and the patience of, you also have to be, I guess, honest and upfront about what your needs are, but just make sure you do it in a way that is respectful.
Absolutely. So I have some fun questions to kind of wrap the podcast up with.
Okay, hit me with them.
What's your go-to snack or drink while working late?
I think I guess I like something that feels like a cross between like a treat but also nutritious. So something like chocolate covered nuts because you're getting the quick hit, you're like, oh, I'm having chocolate. It's,
Yeah.
you're getting that quick, maybe sugar hit, but then also there's something else to it that hopefully makes it last a little longer. So I love a dark chocolate almond.
Yeah, that's not a bad choice. I'm a chocolate covered raisin guy myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what's a hobby or interest you have outside of music and film?
Um, I I don't have any traditional hobbies like, I don't knit or sew or make anything else.
Who?
But I really like I'm a real city person.
Hmm.
So I love exploring a city. I love going out to brunch or discovering a new place for cocktails. Uh those sorts of things. I think that's what when I'm not working, that's what I like to spend my time doing.
That's very
Yeah.
New Yorkerish.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. What's the last TV show you binge watched?
It was either Bridgerton or The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Have you have you heard of that? It's a reality
Yeah,
show, but it is wild.
I've heard of it. I've never watched it. I be honest. The only reality show I've ever watched was The Real World, the original Real World,
Yeah, the OG. Yeah.
the OG. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm yeah. Um, what's a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I once won a kazoo playing competition.
A kazoo?
Yes. So I don't have much in the way of musical talent,
You
but
got the kazoo.
in school, the little plastic or sometimes
Yeah.
it's metal with basically it's like a bit of wax paper that makes the vibration. But when I was younger, I think it must have been because we had learned it in school. Anyway, I love the kazoo because it's sort of anyone could play. And then I went to, I think it was just one night in a bar. They had like big sign up, like kazoo competition. So I was thinking, well, I'm going to get on that. And apparently, I mean, there are like virtuoso players, I guess, but
Oh yeah.
not in this competition. It was people that, I think they just handed you a kazoo and I think I had to play along with the Beatles song. But,
Okay.
but I won probably because of lack of enthusiasm from other people, but maybe because of my musical
Right.
skills.
You don't discount your skills. I mean,
Yeah,
because
I had that on my actor's resume for many years. I said I'm an award-winning kazoo player.
No, really.
And I did never get any jobs because of that, but I definitely, back in the days of in-person auditions, I would have a casting director say, "So tell me about that. I called you in because that just seems like a weird thing to have on your resume."
That is awesome. I want to see somebody come to me with a resume like it says champion kazoo player.
Exactly.
I would give them the job just because of that.
I couldn't get any of the actor platforms that, host your resume. I couldn't get them to add that as a category because I guess apparently nobody else wants to brag about that as their skill aside from me.
Let me tell you something. So I have a friend who's a music artist, and whenever he goes out and plays at different venues in New York City, I will stand up front, and at the end of the show, when people come up to congratulate him, I tell people like, "Well, I was like, did you see me in back?" And they're like, "In back of what?" I was like, "I was back in the backstage. I play the spoons." And so when he released his last album last year, if you go up to Spotify, he gave me credits as spoon player on his album. I don't know how to play a spoon. I can eat, but I can't play no spoons. But I always thought it was hilarious.
That's amazing. You really are a master of, you just speak it into existence and
That's
then
right.
there you are. You're credited.
That's right. What's next for you?
Well, the film I did last year, One Second After, hopefully is coming out later this year. And that's an action film, so very, very different than
Oh, nice.
it's a post-apocalyptic. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say I'm carrying a giant sort of automatic gun situation. Anyway, it's very
Hmm.
dark and not like anything else I've done before. So very challenging, which was great. And I've just made a short comedy. I wrote and directed. I like to keep busy in between projects, so I've just directed this comedy short, which I need to do the post production on. So that'll probably be the next thing to come out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing other stuff that keeps you busy and keeps you doing things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last question before you go. What was the last song that you played on your listen to?
I don't know 100% off the top of my head, but my guess would be that it was something by The Cure, because that's my absolute favorite band. So they're in heavy rotation at all times.
Yeah, I love The Cure. This was great. Where can people keep up with what you're doing? I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah, I would say probably best place to find me is on Instagram at Gigi Burgdorf. That's GIGI BURGDORF. If you need the full spelling, yeah.
Well, I think everybody should definitely go and watch Preschool. I believe it's available for streaming currently, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Prime Video and Apple TV, I believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in that.
It's a lot of fun.
It looks like I like Josh, man. He's a funny dude.
And he's such a nice guy. He's so down to earth.
He seems like it. Yeah, he seems like he's a really nice dude.
A joy to work with, and he trusted me with a very fun part. So, yeah.
Well, Gigi, you're welcome to come back anytime you want. And if you want to bring your kazoo, that's fine too.
Why don't we just have a duet, you on spoons, me on kazoo, and we'll just do that for a whole hour? I'm sure your listeners would enjoy that.
I'm sure they won't mind. Not at all.
They're tuning in.
Yeah, tuning in is more like tuning me out, probably. Thank you for being on the show. This was awesome.
Yeah, I've had such fun. So thank you so much for having me, Daron.
Be sure to follow Gigi at Gigi Burgdorf on Instagram. And while you're at it, if you happen to feel sorry for me, please go up to Instagram and follow me at the Daron Jenkins. New episodes come out every week, and this one will be out hopefully really soon. Until next time, I am Daron Jenkins. We'll see you soon.